Hello and welcome to another episode of Clean Talk. I'm your host, Brad Whitchurch. Today is Monday, September 18th, and we're very excited to have with us a special guest today. Our guest today is John Cole. He's the CEO at UV360. John, welcome to Clean Talk.
Thanks for having me, Brad. Look forward to it.
Well, thank you for being on our show. You know, we're big proponents of UV on this show, and I could tell by the name of your company that you must have a UV play. What can you tell our audience about your background and UV360?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've spent about 25 years in entrepreneurship. And when you get started in entrepreneurship, you don't exactly know where you're going to end up. You're going from a lot of different businesses. And I kind of had an interesting segue into the UV space. It's not something that I ever expected that I would get into. But where we are now with UV360 is a wide variety of products. We specialize in a lot of different applications I'm sure we'll jump into in the podcast today. But my background as far as how I got into this space was I was running companies. I was a business traveler. I've been doing angel investing for about 10 or 12 years, and was at a local meetup where they were proposing different pitches and things. And a gentleman who was an inventor pitched this idea and said, hey, I'd seen this article that talked about how contaminated airport security bins were. And in fact, the study actually showed that airport security bins were 18 times dirtier than the toilets in airports, which is disgusting. And as a business traveler, I thought, I'm kind of a clean freak. I hate having to touch those security bins when I go through the airport. And I just pulled the gentleman aside afterward and said, hey, if you ever need an investor, I'd love to talk about this. And he said, well, it's just an idea. We're trying to vet it out and see if we can do it with UV light. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. I never thought I could use light to kill something like this. And so we ended up talking for the coming months and ended up deciding, me and two other gentlemen, I'd put up the money, and we basically started the company called Steribin. And we can probably focus on that a little bit more in a minute, but got going on that. And that was about 4 years ago. And it's morphed and evolved into a lot of different things. But that was my segue into all things UV.
So you got interested in this technology prior to COVID. Is that
Correct.
Right?
Yeah,
so that's interesting.
Probably early 2019 is when I started talking to the inventors.
So you were a visionary and you didn't even know it. Way ahead of the curve there. I find it interesting that the catalyst for you to get in this business was around airports and transportation. We talk a lot about on this show about reducing hospital-acquired infections, but really we're at risk in multiple communal environments. Why don't you tell us more about the Steribin product and the other products in the UV360 portfolio?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we got started with Steribin, again, we were focused on airports, and we started building from scratch. We didn't really know where we were going as far as figuring out the product. I was new to UV, brought some engineers on board, and we started building a device that could disinfect these bins. And so it took some trial and error. We got a prototype built and got that done probably about 3 weeks before COVID had even become a word. We were starting to, this was early 2020. We were hearing a lot of these things about this weird virus that people weren't sure of. And we thought, well, this is really interesting. Here we are, we've got this product, and we'd gotten into the space of saying, hey, we're in the middle of this, what we're thinking it's turned into a pandemic. We've got this product that we believe can help, cut down a lot of these illnesses and the spread of infection, which we already know those bins are very harmful. And so we started working with the TSA, we started working with multiple airports, and that kind of morphed into a lot of different opportunities. We had ended up talking to Los Angeles International Airport at LAX, and they said, "Hey, we want to pilot this program or pilot this device." So we built a custom device for them in mid 2020, and started doing a pilot program with them, and went through and saw really good results, and thought, this is really great. We can basically, what the product was designed to do was to sanitize the security bins before each passenger. So if I walk up as a passenger, I grab the bin, I'm going to be the first person to touch that bin after it's been sanitized, which is really nice. So we've done different studies and things from different airports and different ways of looking at it. Again, had a good study and pilot program there at LAX. It ended up going up to the next stage of TSA in Washington, D.C. So if you're unfamiliar with the airport space, you have obviously the secure area where it's handled by the TSA. But everything for those decisions is made by headquarters in Washington, D.C. So even the local TSA doesn't necessarily have the decisions to do some of those changes. So we started going through all that protocols and we started talking to the TSA saying, hey, we've done some studies, that internal studies that have shown that we can take simulated germs and show how germs can be picked up from a bathroom floor by shoes, transmitted to security bins. Another passenger could put a cell phone in or something and pick up those same germs. And by the end of, walk through a security line, you've got those germs on the side of your face. And so that's kind of where we've kind of evolved with the airport side. But about 2 years into that process, we said, we need to look at other opportunities as well for our technology. The TSA, any type of government organization, you typically have a lot of different departments and things that have to go through a decision-making process. And about 2 years in, we say, I don't know if we're any closer with that regulatory side than when we started, even though we've seen all these good results and successes come through. So let's start looking at other things. And so we ended up looking at a bunch of different opportunities and kind of nailed down on the healthcare side and the food side. Food meaning sanitizing food before it's packaged and sent to consumers. And so that kind of got us down this path where we've kind of, I don't know, we certainly haven't abandoned the airport side, but 4 years in, it's just a long, gradual process with the regulation. But food is definitely a key market for us, as well as healthcare. And I'm sure we'll probably talk a little bit more about both of those.
We absolutely will. And of course, regulatory challenges are significant in this space. A lot of these communal areas are controlled by government regulation, and certainly a lot of us in the healthcare space maybe don't have transportation at the top of our mind, but it's obviously low-hanging fruit, right? And when you can show the evidence that you're picking up fecal matter from the bathrooms and transmitting it to other passengers who are traveling globally, it's just a real opportunity to reduce cross-contamination infections in a critical area. So I applaud your work there, and I hope that you have good outcomes working with TSA, and that all our airports can be safer as a result of this product. But I am interested in talking about the other markets you mentioned. We're highly focused in healthcare here at Clean Talk, but I find that the food business is also an area of low-hanging fruit, no pun intended, and not just food delivery and food distribution, but animal husbandry, right? The ability to keep animals healthy and safe in their environment, so that those pathogens aren't affecting animal husbandry and ultimately getting passed down the line. What can you tell us about what you've been doing in the food service business? And then we'll talk about healthcare.
Yeah, so when we looked at those other opportunities and kind of looked at food, we found that food recalls were a $55 billion a year problem in the United States. And I think dealing in any type of food application, we know that bacteria is all around us, especially in food applications. And even with all the mitigation efforts that companies have, there's so many touch points that food goes through before it gets packaged and sent off to consumers, and stuff gets missed. And that's why you get to these food recalls and people getting sick, or even worse. But we looked at it and said, hey, could we take UV light and be able to focus on this more? And we know that others have done similar things in the past with UV light. And we said, could we deliver that in a faster way or a more efficient way for some of these facilities to onboard some of the UV technologies to be able to do this? And so we've been working with various companies, different types of food products, and have been able to see some really good results on being able to cut those bacteria down before it goes to packaging. And so that's been a market where we think can definitely grow to a more significance and almost become more of a norm in food processing facilities. And I think we'll see that with a lot of UV applications.
Yeah, I agree. And it should be the norm. And obviously, there's the safety issue that you mentioned, but also spoilage. As you said, there's so much waste in food, and people don't, take the time to put two and two together. But that's a result of a bacterial reaction, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can reduce the amount of bacterial exposure, you can increase the longevity of food and have a healthier product for the consumer.
Yeah, and if you look, and you brought up a great point. I mean, you hear a lot in the news about food shortages and potential crises, as population grows and things, and that's a key element. If you can extend shelf life of food, you reduce that spoilage, and so you're hitting it. Not only you're making it safer to consume, but you're also extending or prolonging that food supply.
That's right, and we have to feed the world. And as you mentioned, the challenges with that have been noted. And our audience is mostly hospital infection preventionists, hospital administrators. So let's talk a little bit about healthcare. Where does the product fit into a healthcare environment?
Yeah, so we got started on the healthcare space. Again, this is just operating as Steribin, up until about 2 years ago. And we'd started down this healthcare space. We started working with laboratories and things, one for testing, but also just to see if we could help streamline some processes with UV light. And we ended up talking to a company out of Washington called BioGuard. They've been around since 2008. Their primary products have been in the healthcare space, primarily focusing on hospital keyboards. And we talked to them over the course of probably 6 to 9 months. And we ended up forming a merger with them, finalized that in January of 2022 to form UV360. So as a UV360 brand, we have the BioGuard brand and the Steribin brand. And we've covered the Steribin side. On the BioGuard products, we have what's called the BioGuard Cubby and the BioGuard Cubby Plus. And those are designed for hospital applications where they can sit at a nurse's station, operating rooms, other places, even for patients as they come in. But it's mainly to cut down on shared items, cell phones, tablets that come in, clipboards, stethoscopes, all sorts of things that are being touched and contaminated to help keep those germs out of the hospital environment. So hospitals, I would say, are our primary target or primary customer base for those. We have hospitals all around the world that use our products. And we also have, Delta Sky Lounges in the travel space, Marriott hotels and others that have seen the benefit of this for guests or passengers as well.